All right. Keep forgetting. Okay, so this is the seventh beer. Because I am trying to do them in order and kind of be like, sing a little song. You know how I do, man. I make it corny. The seventh of 2020's 12 beers of Christmas is Alligator Swag, a Hazy Double IPA from Barrel Theory Beer Company in St. Paul. The brewery is well known for their work in the realm of big hop bomb Hazy IPAs and double IPAs. We chat with brewer Tyler Ostlund to learn a bit about Barrel Theory's process and get some tips for homebrewers looking to brew that style. The 12 Beers of Christmas is brought to you with ongoing support from BSG Handcraft, Imperial Yeast, and the Patreon supporters of Chop and Brew. Join them at patreon.com/chopandbrew. On the seventh beer of Christmas, my brew love gave to me. Barrel Theory. Alligator Swag. What y'all know about the Alligator Swag? And look what also popped out of Santa's fat sack of goodies. Tyler Ostlund. What up, brewer from Barrel Theory?
What's up?
You're like a 3 times former coworker, right?
Something
Northern
like
Brewer.
that. At least 2.
Oh yeah, no, just 2. Northern Brewer and Summit. Then you're at Surly. You've been at Barrel Theory for a hot minute.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's awesome. Thanks for taking out on a Sunday to day drink with me.
Yep. Anyway, anytime.
So the one thing I'll say, so what we're drinking here is billed as Hazy Double IPA with Nelson, Sauvin, and Strata hops.
Mm-hmm.
Accurate. And the one thing I'll say is as I was pouring it to take like the beauty shots, the photos for the video thumbnail and stuff, it smelled like Barrel Theory. Like granted, tons of people are doing hazies, but there's something about this beer. And then when I tasted it, I was just like, oh, it took me back to way back to 8 months ago when you used to be able to like walk from work down West 7th to Barrel Theory and just have like a plethora of these different hazy hop experiments almost. And there's something about y'all's that have this very unique flavor. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about at all.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I mean, I think like the biggest thing that separates it is the hop saturation level. You know, like you said, you can smell it immediately when you open it and pour it. Just a lot of hops there.
Is that like intentional? I guess what we're really going to talk about in this video is just Hazy Double IPAs or Hazy IPAs.
Yeah,
and I think Hazies and Hazy Doubles.
Mm-hmm. I think the biggest thing is just the amount of hops that we use. You know, like being on a smaller system, it's easier to use a ton of hops, especially in your dry hopping. And you got to dry hop it right at the right time, and if you don't, it's not going to be the same. You know, it's got to be pungent. It's got to have that like biotransformation from the yeast, and that's like the secret to an aromatic IPA that has like an abundance of like almost too many hops for some people, you know, but that's just what we like there, and we just continue to do it.
So you're calling it dry hopping, but then you say like yeast. So it's really more like phases of primary fermentation hopping, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sort of. I mean, you just want to catch it before it's done fermenting, right? That's like, you know, fundamental dry hopping knowledge. But if you don't, because we've had some bad luck with a few dry hoppings, you know, like not catching them or the yeast isn't quite there, and we get like more of a melon kind of character to the dry hop rather than like something that's, you know, just completely saturated with hops, and you can just smell it from across the room.
When you describe it kind of as this melony, I won't call it an off flavor, but clearly you pointed it out. That's almost regardless of the variety. It's not like melon because X hop went in too late. It's maybe that vegetal matter of just the mass going in.
Yeah, like a mass going in and just kind of either just like sitting in suspension or dropping completely out, and it just doesn't quite take, you know, the way that it should.
It's so weird to think of that this is the way people hop now though, right? A dry hop used to mean a week after it's done fermenting and even starting to clear, then you throw a bunch of hops in, and I assume
Yeah,
some
then you
people are still brewing beers in that style.
Yeah. And even like letting dry hops sit, you know, like you don't need to let your hops sit in your beer for 2 weeks anymore. You know, that's just not necessary.
It's better to put them through that final stage of fermentation and let them get kind of like agitated almost. I don't know if that's the right word, but let them get in the mix for a lot longer during the active part.
A lot of people use the term biotransformation. I fully think that's what's happening, you know, within maybe a degree, Plato, before terminal, gravity, dry hop, and then it just goes a little bit more when the hops are introduced, and that's what you're looking for when you dry hop a New England style IPA.
You mentioned you like this combo of hops specifically. What's kind of going on between the two of them?
Well, Nelson is one of those hops where everybody kind of wants it, and then once you get your hands on it, it's fun. But I think they get tossed around a lot too, so it's hard to get a very nice lot of Nelson. You know what I mean? So, because we've dealt with Nelson before in the past that we didn't like. You know, it's like you get a variety of hops in that's, you know, like Nelson Sauvin. Everybody wants that, and it's just not quite as cool as you thought it was going to be, or as, you know. And then when you get a really awesome lot of Nelson in and you use it a lot, like, you know, your hopping rate is high. You mix it in with a hop like Strata, which is probably my favorite hop at the moment, just because it's so dank, and it's like citrus danker older brother or younger brother, whatever you want to, you know, call it. But like this beer, especially now, it's kind of had like maybe a month to kind of, you know, condition. You smell it, and like I get like straight mango almost. Just a little bit of citrus and a little bit of dankness from the Strata, because it's the ratio of the dry hop is like very heavy Nelson and just, you know, a little bit of Strata. So it's not like 50-50 or anything like that.
And you guys put a lot of combinations of hops kind of through the ringer. How do you kind of decide that? How do you decide 2 or 3 hops that might work together? Because to me, they're sometimes like the differences are so minute that I don't really know how people go into recipe development thinking about an end product with so many options, and the options now are all just so, you know, just extraneous, whatever, the like so many adjectives to so many tasting profiles.
Yeah, I think the best, I mean, you got to do what works for you, for one, because, you know, people's water profiles are different depending on what you're doing there. And if you just use what you like, you know what I mean? Like, instead of experimenting all the time with, oh, I want the newest hop and want the newest, you know, newest this, the experimental that, instead just take what you like or take what you know and you kind of build on that. I think that's kind of that's how we kind of decide on, you know, what we want to dry hop beers with. And we're small, so we can do that. You know, we don't have a massive production schedule where we need to hit, you know, certain brands and stuff. You know, we can just do whatever we want basically and brew new beers all the time.
Why do you think people like Hazy IPAs, Tyler?
Because they're drinkable, and I don't know, in my opinion, that's the best way to taste the hop, like, isn't a Hazy IPA, because there's not that cloying bitterness that, you know, we kind of grew up homebrewing on, you know, like, oh, how many IBUs can we jam into this beer? How bitter can we possibly make it? Now it's, how can you take that hop and taste it, like, to the extreme, you know? And almost like you push it to that extreme to where the beer is incredibly grassy, and then there's a period where you kind of have to let that mellow out. And then once that grassiness mellows out, then you can fully taste like what those hops have to offer. You know, that's why I like hazy IPAs, and I think that's why other people do too.
So would you suggest for a home brewer that brews a hazy, we hear drink it fresh a lot, but is there such a thing as too fresh? With these kind of beers, it sounds like you're saying a conditioning period is more beneficial than you would ever think for a hoppy beer.
Yeah, I mean it is, but it's also personal preference. You know, like I kind of like the insane like tasting beers out of the bright tank, you know, or you know even out of the fermenter. I kind of like that hop burn, that insane grassiness. Like that's like, wow, that's, you know, some people would say it's too many hops, but I kind of like that. But other people get very turned off by it, which I understand because it's a lot of palate fatigue, you know. So, but yeah, you can let it sit for a little bit. If it's too grassy, just you know push it to the back of your fridge and revisit it in a couple of weeks, and I think it'll mellow out. Not necessarily just Barrel Theory, and just any beer in general. Things like that.
I wish I had a little bit more palate literacy. You know, Barrel Theory and Black Stack both can push out a lot of hop combinations in a very, not in an insulting way, but like in a very similar malt bill. And there are times where I couldn't differentiate, but I just want to smash it either way. So it's like, but I wish that I could like sit with it and kind of nerd out and give some of those like tasting notes that somebody really probably wants when they give you a beer. I'm just like, I don't know, tropical fruit, which is like the default for any hoppy beer these days, it seems like.
Yeah, that's what everybody wants is the tropical, you know, New Zealand, Australian hops and Citra, Mosaic, Strata. But with the whole malt bill thing is you don't want something crazy. You don't want any caramel malts, you know. And if you do, maybe just a tiny bit, you know, like 2.5%, 5%, nothing crazy, because that's when the maltiness kind of kicks in and the sweetness, and I think that kind of disrupts the hop profile, you know, in the style. Is when it becomes too malty. If you pour it and it looks amber, like oof. Like, you know, it's going to be rough. It's going to be hard to get through because nobody wants like an under attenuated beer. And like the caramel malt just like accentuates that.
Yeah. A hazy amber. Ooh, I don't know.
Amber, but you know, like if you use a little too much caramel malt, and like it gets bad. Really.
No, when we were in Austin, Bob Sodman and I were in Austin last October for just kind of like a boys' weekend of barbecue and beer. We went to Austin Beer Works, and I had joked about this for so long, and then when I saw it on an actual tap list, I was like, they had a hazy black IPA. And it was really good, but the photo, like when I took the photo, it's what you would think. It almost looks like chocolate milk equals like, or meets charcoal, like liquid charcoal. It was very like cloudy black. It was so weird, but it was really good. It was still the things I wanted out of it. You know what I mean? Hazy black.
Was it like how roasty was that?
It was it wasn't as roasty as it looked. Because I'm sure they probably used who knows, like debittered things, but more than anything, like the yeast and hops in suspension still were doing that God's work of keeping the hop layer way high. It wasn't like, oh, this is a stout. They might as well just call this like a late dry hopped stout or an early dry hop stout. It was pretty good, but it looked weird. It was like gray up against the sunshine. It was a little gray. I get your point. Like step back, let the malt bill kind of be really innocent and just let it be supportive, and then let the hop shine. Mm-hmm. You're paying a lot of money to put a lot of them in there. Why would you sit there and why would you give them something else to do battle with, right?
Yeah.
Well, is there anything else you want to throw down for like homebrewers that might be interested in the hazies? I mean, I know they've been out there for a minute, so most of the good advice is out there, but you know, you got a pro brewer who's known for the hazies. Is there some definitely to-dos or some definite not to-dos?
I would like, it's hard because I brewed a lot of hazy IPAs when I was homebrewing as well, and it's hard because I think the difficult part is sourcing your hops as a homebrewer. Like once you start buying maybe repackaged hops and stuff like that. Like I said, was like when I was talking about hop lots earlier, it's like you don't know necessarily what you're going to get all the time. So maybe try buying hops in bulk and getting a lot of them and using more of them than you think you should, you know, because guess what? Brewing hazy IPAs as a home brewer is expensive. You have to buy so many hops. Like the price that homebrewers buy hops at is different. So my advice would be to, you know, either buy hops in bulk if that's the kind of like style you want to mainly brew, and keep your malt bill simple, you know, and use a combination of base malts possibly. A lot of adjunct, you know, a lot of flaked barley.
Yeah.
White wheat, like oats, obviously, flaked oats, and then oat malt. I like that. Like those are, you know, a lot of adjuncted malts to add to the base malts.
Even on the clean malt, would you suggest even kind of like the old school West Coast IPA way of thinking, like Nathan Smith, kind of like two-row and Maris is what he would do, obviously for a clearer, but do you even kind of play around with that, or is it more about those malts that are going to give you the haze that you're talking about right here?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, yeah, Maris Otter, Golden Promise, Pilsner malt, you know, don't be afraid to use Pilsner malts in your IPAs. I mean, two-row.
Yeah, because you're going to cloud it up with the other stuff anyway.
Yeah. And, you know, in my opinion, like this one isn't like the greatest example, but like a very, you know, like bright yellow IPA is the most, you know, it looks the best in my opinion. Like the lighter it is, it looks really nice. It looks like a little glass of orange juice almost, you know?
That's what they say.
Once it starts getting darker than that though, good luck.
Yeah, I've seen some dark ones. Woo, it goes south quick, man. Let me just ask you one question then. So I think Heady Topper gets credit for like launching this style, but do you think it's actually what launched this style, or do you think something else along the way solidified it in the kind of canon of craft beer?
That's hard to say.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think people just probably started experimenting, you know, as they do, and they realized, hey, we can make, you know, everybody likes to use the word soft and cloudy and, you know, whatever else. Yeah, you like, let's get the hop flavor without all the bitterness. And how do we do that? And this, you know, this is how you do it. And yeah, you know, drinking Heady Topper now is not the same as drinking Heady Topper back then either, you know, because you know, once you increase that scale, like it's hard to maintain the integrity of the brand.
I haven't had one in a minute, but I do remember being like life-changing in the life of a beer nerd, you know what I mean? Just
oh yeah,
a rule was so broken that you're like, oh.
And they were, you know, they still do the thing where, hey, don't pour this into a glass because it's going to be ugly. You know, they admitted that. But I think if you get past that as a brewer or a drinker of beer, I think you can enjoy it.
All right, Tyler, we got another big ass beer to drink on a beer of Christmas. So let's we'll say goodbye for now. Shout out to Turf Club as well. I put it in my most like St. Paul glass I could find for my most St. Paul brewery I could meet up with on a Sunday. What do you got? What's on your glass?
It's a Barrel Theory Speedlog glass.
Yeah, it is.
I like drinking out of it. It's nice and thin.
Chop for chop.
Brew for brew.
We'll see y'all on the 8th day of Christmas. feel my beer a little bit already. We haven't had a whole lot of food today. And that's the way a lot of these have gone. Oh, shit, dude. I'm getting a little lit, my man. I'm going to need to eat about half a turkey.
You know, you need the turkey on the brioche with a little bit of like cranberry jelly. I think that's the secret to leftover turkey.